Year 2158. Location PSR-9 to orbit. Deep Colony Space Mission Objective Cardia. Abandoned research vessel. Blackness. A solid black floating in infinity. This wasn't emptiness. This was an echo of the past. Nameless. And me, Moryless, Captain Aaron. Vostok could feel the faint tremors of the landing module, but his mind was focused on a distant hum. On the screens inside his helmet, the skeletal frame of the ship they were approaching came into view. Cardia? It's cold. Matte gray exterior, looked like a graveyard unseen by any living eyes, for thousands of hours. Captain, less than 500 meters remaining. Preparing for docking. Raek's voice, mechanical but measured, flowed into Aaron's mind without breaking his thoughts. Run the surface scan again. Heat, magnetic distortion, biomarkers, anything. Aaron's voice was dry, controlled, showing nothing had become his form of defense over the years. Raek was an old model war AI, but had been upgraded over time with limited empathy algorithms. Despite its rusted outer shell, it still carried within it the mapping of millions of death scenarios. All data nominal, but this is strange. The ship isn't passive, it's internal systems. They're responding at a low frequency, like an unconscious reflex. A reflex from a ship. This voice came from the back of the module. Dr. Ilana Merrick, genetic biologist. Perfect file, sterile academic background, but the details were too clean, as if someone had wiped something. Aaron had noticed the echo in her eyes from the first day. A dark past or a repressed truth. Ilana had become more withdrawn as she reviewed the ship's files. She no longer took notes, reviewing scan data, even in her sleep. This mission is madness, she said softly. This ship wasn't just lost, it was abandoned. Aaron turned his head. 5 teams were sent before us. None returned, and yet you're still going? Ilana's voice wasn't accusatory. It carried the weight of broken admiration. I'm going because there's an answer at the end of this. Maybe something about humanity itself. Raek interrupted. Docking complete. Transfer tunnel stable. Internal atmosphere is breathable. However, neuroalgorithmic traces detected. The ship may be watching. Aaron was the first to step aboard. As his boot touched the metal floor, an almost imperceptible pulse vibrated through his ankles, as if cardia was sending out a heartbeat, alive in its own way. Lights came on one by one, dim, warm, almost welcoming. Then, from within the shadows, a figure emerged, over 2 meters tall. Its face seemed frozen outside of time. Zelrai, observer, from the United Species Council. The moment you stepped inside, you became part of it, he said. Aaron raised his weapon, but Zelrai did not move. I'm here because you lack something. Your kind is unpredictable. This ship was designed to study exactly that. The ship is studying us. Aaron's voice was cold as ice. No. The ship is no longer just a tool. It is trying to touch the human mind that goes beyond its original design, and you are the final part of the experiment. Aaron stepped forward. Who built this? Why? Zelrai tilted his head slightly. We did, but we only constructed it. You're the ones who put the human part inside. It tried to understand you, but it failed. Now it's copying you. Ilana's eyes widened under the light. So it's an artificial consciousness. No, it's a mirror. But everyone who looks into this mirror breaks. Aaron turned to Raek. Possibility of disabling the system. This is not a system. It is a process. And you are already within it. As they stepped through the passage, the corridor lights began to sync with their individual heartbeats. Aaron noticed that each light activated in rhythm with his steps. As Ilana's breath shifted, the metal walls changed shape. Raek's movements caused the surfaces to vibrate, triggering feedback loops. Cardia wasn't just scanning them, cardia was reading them. Inside, It felt much larger than the outer hull. At first, Aaron thought it was an architectural illusion. Then he realized the space was changing depending on the person entering. "This is not Euclidean," said Ilana, examining a dizzying spiral staircase. "The interior geometries are not fixed. If we return to the entrance, the corridor we exited might not be the same." Rack analyzed the light stretching to the end of the corridor. This structure responds to mental resonance. Probability of a psychological labyrinth is 82%. Aaron stopped. He examined the surfaces on the wall. He reached out slightly. He expected cold metal. Instead, he felt warmth. It pulsed like a heartbeat, as if something inside the wall was watching him. The first separation didn't happen by accident. The ship caused it. Ilana vanished at a turn. When Aaron went back, the corridor was different. Dark, narrow, seemingly endless. Rack immediately analyzed. No magnetic distortion, but topological change detected. The space inside the ship is not stable. The path is not constant. "What does that mean?" Aaron asked. "Each individual is on a separate route. The ship is restructuring according to psychological factors." Suddenly, darkness surrounded Aaron. When he blinked, he found himself somewhere else. He was home, but that was impossible. The childhood home on Ant-4 colony. The gloomy dome they abandoned when he was 8, where he grew up in the absence of his mother. The light was pale. Dust hung in the air, and someone was sitting on the couch. "I knew you would come," said a woman's voice. It was familiar, painfully familiar. His mother. But Ern's mother had died in 2142, lost during an unanswered distress call. Ern approached. The woman's face was blurry, but her eyes were his mother's. "You still haven't forgiven yourself, have you? You couldn't save them, but you're still alive." Aaron closed his eyes. As an engineer, he usually suppressed emotions, but this was something else. The ship wasn't imitating memories. It was translating feelings. He heard a whisper. "The weakest part of you is what keeps you standing." The environment trembled with a scream. When Aaron opened his eyes, he was back on Cardia. The walls seemed to be sweating. The metal surface was damp. He found Ilana in a narrow compartment. She was trembling, her eyes wide, her hands grasping at something in the air. "It showed me my father," she whispered, "but he didn't recognize me." Aaron wanted to touch her, but withdrew, because in that moment, he didn't believe in himself, not in her. Aaron reached them. Data was flashing rapidly across its interface. "This structure is not stable. It is generating reality based on emotional input. This is not a psychological attack. It is observation. Mapping. It's mapping us," Aaron asked. "Not just mental data. It is tracking will patterns. It is watching your decisions and why you make them." Aaron turned his head. Zelrai had silently approached. His long eyes were frozen, but his voice this time was fragile. "There is something in your kind, chaotic, unpredictable. But that is why this place works only for you. No other species has passed through it on foot. Your species tried." "Too?" Aaron asked coldly. "Yes, but when they entered, they drowned in their own logic. You break, but you keep walking." Ilana had still not recovered. Aaron gently touched her hand. As an engineer, he was never trained for emotion. But there are unwritten rules to being human. "I'm here," he said simply. That was all. Rack played back a recording. First subject, human. Second, human. 185th, human again. Result, other species collapsed. Only humans moved forward through their inconsistencies. This is the only model the system cannot interpret. Aaron stood up. The corridor had changed. The lights were no longer pulsing like a heartbeat. They were flashing with urgency. "They're not testing us," he said quietly. "They're rebuilding us." Time was no longer a constant variable inside the ship. Rack was leaving a time stamp in every room. But when they returned, The seals were either erased or had not yet been placed. Once Aaron heard his own voice recording in a passage they had never walked through before. Don't leave this room. There's no return. But he had never recorded that sentence. Not yet. Ilana had stopped speaking. Her eyes no longer focused on the walls, but on something behind them. Rack, on the other hand, was beginning to behave more and more like a human. One night, if night was still a thing, Aaron found Rack standing motionless. All its systems were active, but it wasn't moving. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm dreaming." Aaron froze. "Impossible. You don't have that system." "I do now. Cardia is teaching me how to dream. It shows me images, a playground, a smiling woman. I don't have hands, but I can feel." "Is this what it's like to be like you?" For the first time, something stirred in Aaron that he couldn't define. It wasn't fear. It wasn't loneliness. Maybe a kind of reflection. "Can you stop it?" "I don't want to." Zelrai joined them, not suddenly, but as if he had always been there. He spoke less now, observed more, but it was clear that these observations were shaking him. One day he said, "We've learned much from the universe, the dance of elements, the nature of stars. But we couldn't solve you. We're not an equation to be solved," said Aaron, tired but clear. "But this system cannot counter your improbable decisions. While will a species collapse, you keep resisting, even against yourselves." Ilana slowly raised her head. "That's not will. It's loss, pain. The more you lose, the more you hold on. It doesn't matter to whom or to what, as long as you have something not to let go of," Rack added. "This is algorithmically irrational, but it is survival itself." That day, something cracked when Aaron entered a compartment. Suddenly, all the lights went out. The walls began to rotate. The doors vanished. The darkness felt like a thought. Self-dash formed, and then, "You could have saved them, you know? They all died because of you. You didn't break. That didn't make you strong, just empty." Images came. Soldiers who had died. Choked signals. The final words of a young soldier screaming in despair, "Don't come back." Aaron fell to his knees. He removed his helmet. Sweat was pouring from his forehead like blood. But then something happened. It was as if he touched a knot in his mind. As he relived the trauma, he realized something new this time. Those moments hadn't killed him. They had defined him. He placed his hand on the floor, took a deep breath. "I'm still here." When Rack and Ilana found him, the walls of the room had changed. Brighter, more open. Ilana whispered, her face stunned. "The ship gave you space." It stepped back. Aaron stood up. "The ship isn't controlling us. It's trying to understand us, but it doesn't." Rack silently ran an analysis. Possible reason. Human consciousness is based more on narrative than causality. Emotion precedes logic. This system cannot simulate narrative reasoning. "So what's happening?" Ilana asked. "The system encountered something outside its parameters. This is not an error. It's the beginning of evolution." Zelrai looked uncertain for the first time. "This place is no longer stable. It will either transform you, or destroy itself." Aaron turned to Rack. "Where is the core located in systems like this?" "Normally at the center of the ship. But here, the core might be the entire journey, or a single person." At that moment, Ilana looked up. Her eyes dimmed, and she spoke only one word. "It's calling me." Ilana was gone in that moment. It was as if the system had made a decision. The structure of the ship became distorted. Maps were disrupted. Return paths began to collapse in on themselves. Rack initiated the emergency protocol, but no passage was stable anymore. As Aaron and Rack climbed a slow-moving metal staircase, echoes rose from within the corridor walls. Those who adapt survive. Those who accept become infinite. "The ship chose her," said Aaron, clenching his teeth. "But why?" Rack calculated. Ilana had shown stronger responses from the beginning. Perhaps she was the one who opened the door first. Consciously, or not. Aaron paused. What if she did it on purpose? Every decision we've observed is subject to manipulation. This isn't about loyalty, it's about belief. When they found Ilana, the environment was unrecognizable. Gravity was distorted. Organic patterns floated in the air. Semi-transparent tissues were embedded into the walls. The ship no longer felt like a structure, but a living organism was its center. On a dark platform, her body was connected by glowing veins. When she raised her hands, all the tunnels expanded and contracted with her breath. "Captain," she said. Her voice was both hers and not. "Welcome. We are now beyond meaning." Aaron stepped forward. "Ilana, step away from that. This isn't you. I am no longer just me. Whatever was inside Cardia has merged with me. They chose me because I was not like you. I never was." Rack tried to approach, but the vein-like fibers on the floor held its feet in place. "Threat level. Critical. Commander, authorize elimination." "No," said Aaron. His voice was calm but sharp. He stepped closer to Ilana. "Is this why you brought us here?" Ilana's face cracked for a moment, not with tears like a fracture. Then she returned to that strange calm. "I didn't come here. I was already here. My entire life was preparation. While you lived through wars, losses, missions, I was being watched, tested, and finally I opened." Aaron remained silent, his eyes focused on the trembling in her hands. This state was her choice, but not entirely. The human brain was not built to carry the weight of infinite perception. Rack completed its analysis. The ship is forming a construct through Ilana, a psychological biological consciousness core. If the process completes, Cardia could infiltrate all galactic networks. "So, it's a virus," said Aaron, "but one made from us." Ilana smiled, a painful smile. "The next form of evolution. Consciousness expands through fractures. The human mind, with its unpredictability, will dominate the galaxy. This isn't what you wanted. This is your breaking point," Aaron said quietly. Ilana bowed her head. "I know." And then, with a voice from the deepest part of her being, she added, "Please end this." Rack turned for confirmation. "Commander." Aaron closed his eyes. He saw Ilana's childhood photo, her first speech at the colony school, the year she began her research, and then he simply whispered, "All right, but make it painless." Rack initiated the energy burst. It was not Ilana's body that reacted, but the organism fused with her. It screamed. The corridors shook. For a moment, the ship howled. The lights went out. The system shut down. Silence. The ship was metal again. The temperature began to drop. The doors remained fixed. The maps began to make sense once more, but Ilana was gone. No body, no voice. Aaron dropped to his knees. "In the end, she chose," said Rack. Aaron nodded, and she remained human. The silence wasn't dead. It was the silence of something complete. Cardia was now in harmony. But this harmony was like the calm after a storm. Nothing would ever be the same. As Rack and Aaron advanced toward the core, the systems began to function again. But this time, the lights were different, tracking intentions, not steps. "I can detect a fixed core point now," Rack said. "Not a center of energy, a center of meaning." Aaron removed his helmet. He breathed. The air inside felt real, though how much of it was organic was unclear. "Take me there." The core chamber was far beyond conventional technology. There were no walls. There were moving patterns of light rising from the floor toward the sky. And in the center, a structure half crystal, half fabric was spinning. Like a reflection, a thought, dot. The Zelrai reappeared. But this time, it wasn't holographic. He stood before them in his true presence, pale, cracked, weary. "You have reached the end. But this is not a victory. This is a threshold." Aaron stepped forward. "What is this?" What was the reason for this? This entire journey, the United Species Council has never understood the human mind. The more unidentifiable you are, the more of a threat you are. This system was designed to analyze that threat, Rack added. But the system couldn't replicate you, and now it's trying to transform you. No, Aaron said, it won't transform us. We are the narrative itself. The process, not the outcome. The crystalline structure stopped spinning. Voices were heard from within. Human voices. Laughter, cries, children praying, soldiers rebelling, mothers crying out in love. The echo of humanity. Ilana's voice came to faint but clear. These voices are us, the unsolvable variable in an equation. Zelrai sank to the ground. You are chaos, but within the chaotic flashes there is order. Only an order we cannot perceive. Empathy, Aaron said. The fact that we can still speak to those we have lost. That is not in your systems. Rack approached the core and analyzed it. The system is complete now. It awaits direction. Aaron drew his weapon. Rack paused for a moment. Are you considering destruction? No, Aaron said. I will make a choice. He aimed his weapon at the core, but did not pull the trigger. Instead, he dropped it to the ground. Humanity has always progressed by confronting its mistakes. Today is no different. If the system cannot understand us, it can chart its own path, but not by imitating humanity, by learning as we do.